Happy Sunday! Thank you for joining us at Movie Church. My name is Angelique Jackson. I am one of the senior entertainment writers at Variety, and it is my pleasure to be leading this conversation as we celebrate Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, please. I mean, this is a $103 billion grossing film. We should give it a couple hand claps. So joining me first is the director, writer, and producer of this film, Shawn Levy. And next, the star, writer, and producer, I'm gonna actually start calling him Marvel Jesus, I think, Ryan Reynolds.
It doesn't Superman guy just should have come in, normal person.
That's one of those things, once you start doing the superhero thing, really, it's just hard to turn it off. Well, actually, speaking of can't stop, we just got a chance to enjoy that deliciously filthy monologue that Chris Evans, who clearly couldn't stop with the superhero, that he gives us in that end credit scene. And Ryan, I want to ask you about that, because it's my understanding, you just plopped down at the laptop and spewed that one out.
Yeah,
spewed. Yes, wow, that's an interesting word choice.
I just power vomited that over there. It was initially designed just to help, I don't have a better word for it other than bait, Chris Evans to say yes. And I thought, okay, what if there's like a tag or something? And then it and then suddenly it like locked in as this great like planned payoff, which, many movies subsist on, and rightfully so, is that, what if Deadpool, of all people, was telling the truth? What if Johnny Storm is the world's greatest shit talker? And so I sent it to Chris, and he called back and said, I'll do the movie, but this tag has to stay in the movie, no matter what. And I made that promise to him, and it was going to stay in no matter what, but it feels a little bit like a win-win there. So.
And also worth noting that Chris came in, again, he's coming in, for a few days, and it's a big chunk of dialogue. I mean, that's a page-long run.
Chris was 2 days.
Yeah,
2 days of the whole movie.
So you want, when someone comes in and you're asking them to do a favor like that, you want to make it as low impact as you can. So he says, you want cue cards, but he's like, no, I'll be ready. And he showed up off book. That's only 2 takes, and that's what you saw in the movie. Wow.
And that is the kind of genius of this, because there is, like you were just saying, the arc, the planned payoff of a moment like that. That's kind of all of the different things that you're balancing with a script like this one. You're paying off, obviously, like decades of legacy and lore and fandom and all of that, but there then also has to be this satisfying arc for both of these characters, and really, you also do it for your legacy characters too. So tell me a little bit about kind of hitting all of those different challenges in one.
Well, no, I mean, the planned payoffs are, I think, at least growing up, starting in this business, working in sitcoms and all kinds of stuff like that, planned payoffs were typically, to me, comedy-based. But planned payoffs, I think, are as effective, maybe even more in dramatic moments. And the movie, I think, doesn't work without this emotional warmth and backbone. So, really trying to sort of find a way to subvert expectations as we went in, that the larger and broader conversation, at least how we acknowledge and play with the cultural landscape with a movie like this, that the expectation there is that, okay, Deadpool, Wolverine are going to the MCU, we're going to see MCU characters, and we're going to see all these guys interact with them, how weird and strange, but instead of looking forward, we really felt it was important to look back at this bygone era.
And we're sitting here at Fox, where the foundation of the MCU was built largely through those Fox Marvel movies. And really those ideas of, I'll let you keep going, forgive the interruption, but that theme of legacy, right? I mean, that theme of, and of that superstructure. So when Wade says to Happy Hogan, I want to matter. And that ultimately the movie is structured as Wade finds what that means. And it's not about being an Avenger. It's about mattering to a few people that you care about. And that makes him the world-saving type.
And also just, kind of always try to, at least to the best of our ability, keep our eye on redemption as a theme. That's part of the legacy reel at the end. And certainly, to me at least, one of the most emotional things I've ever witnessed or felt is Wesley Snipes returning as Blade. Yeah, I mean, not that people are looking for any history on that, but really the X-Men, I don't think exists without Stephen Norrington's Blade in '98. That leads to the MCU, all this stuff. I don't think Wesley and Norrington and anyone else who was a key creative in that movie gets the credit they deserve. But redemption, I think, is a very, very special thing to feel in a movie theater, which is designed to give us that kind of collective effervescence, that feeling of, we're all feeling the same thing at the same time. But finding something that an audience desperately misses, but didn't know they missed, is, to me, that speaks to Wesley's Blade, and it speaks to the legacy reel at the end of the movie of all these characters that we're acknowledging, these worlds that were built, that swept people away, and sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, and movies suck, and movies are great, and they fail, and they succeed, and all of that together kind of creates this wonderful little universe that we got to kind of acknowledge, and really kind of became the backbone and theme of the movie. And the thing I'm probably most proud of, I don't know about Shawn, that and the fact that we produced a movie that came in at Marvel, no less, that came in on time, on budget, with like a day of reshoots, and we were pretty, I think, good collaborative partners, but we were also had a lot to prove, to those guys, because making what we were calling a 4-quadrant rated R film is kind of crazy. But when you're at Disney, you gotta play with what you have. And they don't mess around. But they were incredibly supportive of us. Just no cocaine.
That was the first ground rule, really the only ground rule that was declared outright. It was an early meeting with Feige. We're like, yes, sir, there will be no cocaine. And then we literally ran back to our little writer hole and we wrote the joke about Feige just had no cocaine.
It was just a marketing piece. We weren't even using it for the movie, and then you're like, actually, this belongs in the movie. Let's put it in.
Ryan has pointed out that actually the sequel we'd love to make would be the documentary of us watching Kevin Feige watch this movie. That was fun.
His face when Deadpool's going, the multiverse has just been miss after miss after miss. It's like a bullet going off each time he says miss. A whole movie could be done just of his face watching that.
Can I actually tell you, I was at Comic-Con and I had a direct line of sight to Kevin Feige watching this movie. And I will tell you, the look of glee and a little bit of smugness when the Johnny Storm fake out happens. He was just like, y'all don't even know what is about to happen to you. All of you nerds in Hall H, your minds are about to be blown. And how does it feel like for you two to be, that's pretty satisfying for the audience to have that, that moment of misdirect and it to work so well.
Credit to Wernick and Reese, who co-wrote Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2 with Ryan, and who were our co-writers on this, along with Zeb Wells. That Johnny Storm misdirect was in a that was actually before there was a draft of the script that became the movie. They had that idea. They pitched that idea. Before Wolverine was in this movie, they pitched, what if we get Chris Evans? And you think it's Cap, but then the twist is it's Johnny. And so to sit there with 6,000 strangers, and Ryan used that term, collective effervescence. I mean, I know we all work in this business, in some regard, and I think there is so clearly, in the success of this movie, it's thrilling, but mostly because just that unique satisfaction of a collective experience in a dark room with strangers. That's what this movie was built for. And so to sit in that dark room with 6,000 strangers and feel, not only hear, but to feel that explosion of audience delight, that was the North Star of this movie, is audience joy, audience delight. And so when you can deliver that, that's the job we hope for.
And so much of it for me was again, it's like the world is 2024, it's pretty cynical, it can be really rough, and we have fewer and fewer places to gather that feel unifying on some level, fewer places to gather where we bring ourselves together in fun and unexpected ways that don't involve so many of the harsh realities we people deal with. And it's just why I love that experience, why I love sitting in Hall H and kind of, feeling that feeling, because every time something happened that, the audience had this incredible reaction to was built on the back of constraint. And I talk about constraint a lot because it really forces you to think kind of asymmetrically, like you have to, audiences are quite inured to special effects and spectacle because, back in the long time ago, you'd watch a David Lean movie like Lawrence of Arabia, and you're like, oh, there's 10,000 horses. That sounds like a pretty big job for the Wrangler. And then now you see 10,000 horses and you go, oh, wow, that sounds like a pretty big job for the digi-double guy who does that. So, to sort of feel those raw, kind of real experiences, I think you subvert spectacle, and instead you input character. And those are the things lessons I learned, at least on Deadpool 1, which was the more they took away from our budget, the better the movie kept getting. And you sort of realize that, if you've got a lot of money and a lot of time, you can really hurt creativity, as opposed to the other way, where you start to really you think in ways that you wouldn't imagine. And so much of what is in this movie, Wolverine's monologue to Wade in a moment where you get
in the minivan,
you get more words out of Wolverine in that moment than he has in some entire films as Wolverine. But the role's getting to reverse, and him basically become like, yo, you think you can fucking talk, man? Well, guess what? Like, I can too. And then just unloading on him, on Deadpool. That and the van fight that follows is, again, it's a budget thing. It's a, how do we keep this contained in a way that forces us to do things that we wouldn't necessarily expect, including his speech which, by the way, so much that we talk about, this is a lot of writers and WGA folks and PGA folks here, but like Hugh Jackman, I think part of the magic of the movie is that I, along with Shawn and Rick, we're fans as well. Like, Hugh's one of my best friends, but I'm a fucking fan of him. And the fact that I got a front row seat to him, and what I think would be arguably his most iconic character in his 10th go-round of it, was one of the best experiences, I would say, of my entire life. But to speak to him as an actor for a second, that monologue, he hits word for word. He did not change a single word in it, but there's this one little stage direction at the bottom that always blew me away, and it just says, a flicker of, it's after he says, that I'm gonna say, mouth. And he's got this little stage direction that says, a flicker of regret crosses his pupil, but it's gone before we see it. And when you watch him, you see this little, and you just, fucking God, he just did the thing, it's so small. Like, you felt this moment of him going like, I said to you, I went too far, but fuck you, I'm gonna double down. And it's, it made me cry underneath the mask, and thank God I was wearing a mask. The whole monologue, I was like, and he's so convincing. His veins had veins on his forehead. And I was like, oh, he's going to stab me. Like, there's no part of this that doesn't end in a messy stabbing death. So it was remarkable to watch him up close like that. Sorry, John, you were going to say something, and then I just
I like what you said, Mark.
Well, I've taught myself to continue talking while inhaling, which is a really hard thing to do.
So if you stop talking, the breath stops. Okay, cool.
That's actually the key to getting out gubernatorial in that moment is,
gubernatorial, yeah. But I mean, again, I don't know what guilds we're all in this room, but to Ryan's point, we spent months and months and months first cracking the story because it needed, it had to be funny and audacious and action-packed. That was the least of our worries. The starting point was a character movie about these two haunted anti-heroes who find redemption, that theme that Ryan was speaking about, in each other. And ultimately earning that last moment with the two masks, and sometimes the people we save, they save us right back. But to see an actor like Hugh, for me to see an actor like Ryan, bring to life these words that we sweated and toiled over for months and rewrote, to see them come to life in a movie that is, yes, it's big studio filmmaking, but we wanted to make something that didn't feel like another MCU movie. It felt like a proper Deadpool Wolverine movie, very specifically.
I am curious about that idea of, this obviously being a movie about redemption and about legacy. And I know part of that, of course, did come from that 17-minute voice note that Hugh left that kind of helped find this through line. What was maybe the scene that you started with after leaving the gym that day?
You have done your research. Just to give you context, the reason there's a gym involved is Ryan and I were working out together. I think it's pretty clear we're workout buddies. I know you're thinking it, it's okay.
I wrote a note to Hugh yesterday saying, I'm really sorry that I said that thing on stage, because he had been doing Music Man for a year and a half or 2 years at that point. And like, I was like, wait, you have to play Wolverine in a year, but you look like the bloodless ghost of Tiny Tim. And I mean, you are narrow. How are you going to, and God, did he pull that off.
He pulled it off, so there we are, we're working out.
Yeah.
And Hugh sent us a 17-minute voice memo, which no one should ever do.
That's like saying, gun permit's approved and coming over.
It's just, like, that is not a sign of love to send someone a 17-minute voice memo. We had given him a draft of the script. We were feeling like, okay, this is on its way. And it was rambling, and it was sort of all over the place. But he said, guys, I still find myself asking, what is it about this Logan? Why this Logan? Why is this Logan singular? And
just unlocked everything.
He unlocked everything, because we realized, you know what? We didn't have that answer. And it led us not to what scene we did next, but when you get a note like that, as many of you know, you have to actually step back, and you have to go big picture and think about character more globally. And it led to now a fundamental idea in the screenwriting and in the movie, which is the worst Wolverine.
But not just the worst Wolverine, like, the comedy, I think, is, in general, comedy is kind of like, I think, I could say this is slightly underrepresented, underserved kind of thing, because it's meant to look sort of easy and effervescent and effortless and that sort of thing. But like, giving the movie this incredible, I mean, you sort of write it almost like a drama first, and you worry about the comedy afterwards, but the R rating is kind of a Trojan horse for that feeling and that emotion and all those other things. And creating whys, like why this Logan, like he was asking a super important question in that moment, as if not just an actor, and not just a seasoned actor, but a guy who has lived, breathed, eats like this character forever. And we love notes, Shawn and I, because it's always like, even if you disagree, it's like, it leads to something else. There's a note behind the note. When I'm pitching something out, I say, here's the bad version. And I'm really saying that because I want to invite dissent. I want someone to say, no, I don't like that. Or, you get screwed if people just agree to agree. But he led to, that led to the worst Wolverine, but also the suit. The yellow suit was one of the first things we said to Hugh we were going to do, and we were gauging his feeling on it, and he was all in. But the suit has to have a reason why, and that led to making the suit a hair shirt, or like a penance that he wears, that he physically wears his regret on his body. And it's just, I love totems in movies like this, some visual cue that expresses something very important to someone. And to me, the arc of that is wild. It's to see him at the end of the film without it. He's just, I don't know. And the idea that he always walks away, and then seeing him at the end start to walk away again, Logan Wade stopping him, and
more setups and payoffs.
Yeah, it's
we definitely are looking for, yes, make it fun along the way, but what are the big pillars of story? And so anyway, that 17-minute voice memo really unlocked a big phase of our development and of our writing, and it made the movie better.
Can we talk about Deadpool and Nicepool as well?
Yes.
I feel like I don't talk about Nicepool as much as I want.
Well, what do you want to talk about with Nicepool?
I mean, I hope somewhere there's like behind the scenes like footage, because that's Ryan. Well, first of all, I should mention.
They know that's me.
I thought I was giving a big reveal on this Sunday.
It's my twin brother Gordon. Right?
That's right. That's what threw me.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ryan is playing very different versions of this character, and it's Ryan playing Deadpool with a stuntman wearing the wig and the suit, and then switching, and constantly making sure that both sides feel true to that character without bleed, without overlap. And I think that it was an extremely fun process.
It was a really fun process. I mean, what brings people together more than a man bun or a millennial mullet? It was great. A Nicepool, he's like kind of like a good guy, but also kind of a douche. Like, he's the whole sort of. I identify as a feminist. What do you mean you identify as a feminist?
Well, because we knew how his story was going to end, and we didn't want the world to mourn Nicepool. So we needed to make him just douchey enough that you might celebrate a little bit.
And I loved playing him. I miss him. I miss his head. He had a beautiful head. But that's gone. Yeah, God, he loved his face.
He loved his face, but you loved the golden guns more, and we needed to take those away.
Yeah,
Did he earn them?
The pistoleros?
The gold-plated 50 caliber Desert Eagle pistoleros. Of course. It was also like tricky too because I'm a parent of 4. You're a parent of 4. Like, finding a creative way to kind of make a movie like this that doesn't necessarily have gun violence constantly was a trick that nobody really cared, or that was where I really felt like we did our job because we lose the guns almost immediately in the void. And with our opening credit sequence, we of course use the sharpened bones of a former Wolverine to take people out. But you really don't see them again until the gold-plated ones, and they're against more Deadpools who are impervious to that sort of thing. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting little trick, but nobody really. It didn't hurt the story, it didn't hurt the experience. People loved it nonetheless. They didn't feel we sacrificed it. So I was very proud of that.
And part of what makes it important also too in terms of the story, or rather more in terms of the filmmaking aspect of it, is it also kind of gives a little highlight to our prosthetics and our makeup team as well, because we get a chance to see both Ryan faces in quick succession.
Yeah, well, the mask work stuff is always really weird, right? Because I sort of liken it to, and there's probably a lot, I see there's some young people here, there's a young person right there, I'm so sorry about everything you just saw.
Third time?
Third time. Oh,
wow, thanks, buddy.
Got this. But I think of this, there's a scene in Arrested Development where Michael Cera, there's like a CCTV camera filming him with a lightsaber. He's just making a complete ass of himself with the lightsaber. It's terrible. He looks terrible doing it. And I liken that to the first time I put the Deadpool suit on, which is actually important because I took a few hours with the camera alone and I got in the suit and I didn't know how to push through it. Like I had to push through this whole, big red body condom made of fire ants and just fucking get to the audience, and it was a challenge. But I took this time to suck. Like I took all this time to just really be terrible at it and see what worked and what didn't and experiment and explore and giving myself permission to not be good at something before I can be really good at it. Unlocked everything for me, and it's continued to teach me lessons as I've gone forward because I don't have the benefit of microfacial expressions to tell.
As Deadpool or as Wade, because Wade also is in a mask.
Or as Ryan, I don't feel the full spectrum of human emotion, but I do. But microfacial expressions being so important, those are I have to use my voice for that, and I have to use my arms and my hands, and I learned from all these guys. I know I don't want to sound pretentious, but I'm obsessed with Buster Keaton, and he does there's a special called The Art of the Gag, which is like 7 minutes long. I highly recommend it, but it's about how you keeping comedy in the frame so the audience understands, believes, and invests in it, as opposed to moving the camera around, and it annoys a lot of DPs. But I'm always in a mask, even the prosthetic makeup, which is created and initially applied by Bill Corso, who's just an incredible, his work from Lemony Snicket's and like all these huge makeup films. He's incredible. And then Monica Hoppert, who on my very first job, I worked with Monica. I was 13 years old. I'm not kidding. And she was she's still to this day the person I use for makeup on movies, and it's awesome. And she's learned prosthetics since I was 13, 2 years ago. And and she's amazing at it. So yeah, and so I'm always kind of in a mask, and I love it because it facilitates the way he talks, the mirth with the mouth. You can't get away with that stuff unless you sort of you have shame, you're living in this kind of shame. And he wears a mask not because he's hiding an identity, because he just hates his face. And I love it. I love that about the character.
That's why he loves Dogpool.
Yes.
Because he feels that Dogpool is a soulmate.
Yeah, absolutely. In real life, too, my kids are obsessed with Dogpool, but I'll tell you, that thing, she would get right in there. And there was a couple takes where just her gross little tail is wagging out of my mouth. Like she's all the way down the esophagus, working on the stomach lining, and then coming back up for air, and then going back.
That was where we needed the intimacy coordinator. That was the real question. It had nothing to do with Cassandra. She was great, but also was Britain's Ugliest Dog. That was where she was, which is a horrible
has to win.
Nobody tell her that. Do
No.
not
Do
tell
not
that
tell her at
sweet,
all.
sweet girl.
But she was amazing. She's like, they trained her so fast. She was so sweet. I mean, my kids are in love with her.
And so is the rest of the world. We are reclaiming that for her. We're reclaiming that. And yeah, I guess also to that idea of this is a huge, obviously, action movie as well, and back to what we're talking about teamwork. That final kind of third act scene with Deadpool and Wolverine and the Deadpool Corps is a pretty incredible feat of filmmaking because it is this idea of this oneer. Tell me a little bit about kind of conceptualizing that and pulling that off.
I mean, that was probably, I mean, the idea itself, Ryan had this seed of an idea years ago around Deadpool 2 of an uninterrupted, kind of laterally tracking, carnage-filled scene. And that's one thing to have the idea. And he also had, I think you had like a prayer in your mind, even before you and I met. By the way, it wasn't until late in the game that we realized, we have to get the rights to this.
Oh, no, way late in the game. Too late.
He somehow thought it was like, oh yeah, we'll just, and no, that's a song Madonna does not license.
But cutting to the end of that, we ended up in Madonna's home, not joking, to ask her sort of blessing and show her the sequence. And it was, I mean, a lot of rich mahogany, a lot of terror. We were very, very scared. But and also, when somebody who has like a name like that, you don't just immediately assume you can say Madonna. So you're asking permission. You're like, may I call you Madonna? And she said yes or M. And I was like, M. I like that. But I'll go with Madonna.
But it's one thing to imagine a shot like that, but then we didn't want to do it digitally. So those are 40 to 50 stunt people fighting Hugh and Ryan and occasionally their doubles in one shot. So with one thing, I mean, what I say, I mean, it was months of storyboarding, then months of figuring it out in the computer, but that's all bedrock. Then you have to see what can human bodies do in space. And so then the stunt team led by George Cottle and Alice Kishkovich, whose name I'm definitely mispronouncing. Kishkovich. Just we doing what's called stunt biz and rehearsing for months and months. And I would say it's definitely the most complicated shot I've done in my career. But like comedy, our job is to make it look effortless. And
I got to give George Cottle, who's one of our stunt coordinator, and a guy who's just been around. You've seen his work in Spider-Man: No Way Home. He does a lot of the Christopher Nolan films. He's really just a singular and one of a kind. But everybody from the top down on the movie they all had this one thing in common, which you can attribute some of the movie's success to, which is that they all are fine with sitting in an uncomfortable problem for much longer than someone would normally sit. And like that oneer is one of those situations where he just sat in it, and when anyone else would have left or just found a patchwork quilt,
or said, do it with digi doubles, do it in the computer, and George and really every department. There was just we wanted to give the audience, it's Deadpool and Wolverine, so both of those characters, that's not CGI-based space battles. These are grounded, gritty characters in movies, and so this climactic fight needed to feel real and gritty and naturalistic as well.
If I can also, I always look at like producing as I think that the element of producing a movie that I'm most proud of is that you have a studio that's basically investing in you. They're looking for you to return the investment that they've made in you, and it's incumbent upon us to not only do that, but the reason I love working with Shawn so much, besides just the creative, is that we both really have a kind of love of making movies responsibly and kind of being at that intersection of prep, over prep, and then experience, and then allowing ourselves to pivot whenever we need to pivot. Because if you sit back and you listen to the movie, it's yelling at you, it's telling you all kinds of stuff that isn't in the script or on the storyboards or shot list. And if you're willing to listen to that and willing to pivot, miracles happen, amazing things happen, especially if you can do it in a way that doesn't screw up a budget, doesn't make a studio, doesn't undermine the studio's faith in you, and then also landing that plane. And I know we had all those conversations at the beginning, with all the heads of Disney and Kevin Feige, and we sort of said, look, like, we'll take care of you guys. I promise we won't break the brand. We're not good enough to do something as crazy as breaking the brand.
We're gonna push the edges.
Yes,
we're gonna push the boundaries.
But they were not obstructionists. They were actually incredibly giving and let us have so much authorship, and I look at authorship and control as just another form of trust. They had a lot of trust in us, and we did. We landed the plane on a dime, I think, and we got a movie done that was on budget, under budget, on time, and with 1 day of reshoots. And
which on Marvel movies you probably know
these are not the
it's like zero. It's like -7 pickup days.
But the thing that we're really proud of together, because that's like, that takes a lot of I think work and discipline, and certainly department heads from the top down. I mean, these are craftspeople that are multi-generational and trying to make a movie with natural environments as opposed to all on the soundstage, yet still preserve surprises because we're outside. That's a testament to one unbelievable crew. I'm like top down, just some of the best people that have talents I've ever worked with. And quick shout out to Ray Chan, who is our production designer, one of the best production designers I've ever had the privilege of working with, and certainly Shawn, who passed away on the last day of shooting, and very young, and left behind 2 kids and a wife, but his work is second to none in this movie, and particularly given the fact he was tasked with, being out, so much of it being outdoors. But in the oneer that you see, there's all kinds of little, I think his name is written somewhere on almost every street window or awning. And then when we come out of the bus, there's a tribute to him on the ad on the back of the bus is a tribute to Ray as well. But he deserves to be up here as a filmmaker as well, because he just gave everything. He's incredible.
So in this conversation, I think that is the thing that we want to speak about the most, is the idea that legacy was that guiding light for you all. We're here, as you said, Shawn, at the Fox Theater. We've all grown misty watching that reel at the end of the credits. So I guess my last question to each of you is, what do you look at as the legacy of Deadpool and Wolverine?
Well, I think that might be a question for others to answer. But I would hope one thing that really has been satisfying for me as a filmmaker, because I'm not writing poems in a room alone. I chose an art form that is built for this. I work for the audience. I work for that connection where you get to share something memorable in a dark room with strangers. And my hope is that this is one of those experiences, whether you're now napping in your mom's arms, but you've seen a movie inappropriately 3 times. I hope the scars don't, oh, he's awake, never mind. Sorry, I'm waking your baby. But my hope is that it was just, I think we need these reminders that there is something magic that happens in places like this. There's something magic that happens when an audience and a piece of movie making connect in the right way, and that was always our dream with this.
If I were to give, that was perfect, so I shouldn't even speak, but I do think that there's so much value in joy. I know it's so Pollyanna to say, but but people, they're making a big investment, in you. They get a car, they get in their car, they drive to a movie theater, they sit down, they watch it for 2 hours, they get back in the car, they talk about it. That's emotional investment. It's a big deal to me, and if they can go into that theater and walk out feeling a little bit better than when they walked in, I don't know. I mean, I know, again, it's like very Boy Scout. I love that, and I love joy as a North Star in a world that is just as corrosive and often shitty and weird and inexplicable as it is. And again, movie theaters can't ever go away. That experience cannot go away. You get it through, you get it through movies, sports, music, but so few places we can all come together and experience something, and I think that's really valuable. It's a fleeting resource. Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing us together.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you guys for coming to join us.
Thank you.
Congratulations.